Hello, everyone. My name is Srishti and I am a digital transformation consultant at Hyperbots. Today, I'm delighted to have Shaun Walker as my guest. Thank you so much, Shaun, for taking out the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, a little bit about Shaun. So he is a SOX Compliance Manager at Norfolk Southern. And today, we will be discussing Connecticut sales and use tax compliance. So, whenever that you're ready, we can get started. On to the first question. Could you provide an overview of Connecticut's sales tax and use tax rates? And how do these rates differ across goods and services?
Yeah, so Connecticut has a base state tax rate of 6.35%. There's some variation. So for general merchandise, 6.35 is the expected rate. But for luxury goods, items like jewelry over $5,000 or cars over $50,000 are taxed at a higher rate of 7.75%. And then prepared foods, so restaurant meals and some prepared food items are taxed at 7.35%.
Makes sense. And are there any exemptions to this?
So some items like prescription drugs and medical equipment are exempt. So this structure simplifies tax application and requires specific knowledge of tax categories and exemptions.
I see. Now, to the next question, what are some challenges or complexities that Connecticut businesses face due to states' sales tax rules, given the lack of local variations?
Yeah, so like for example, with luxury and prepared goods, you have to differentiate between standard and higher tax items, such as applying the 7.75% rate for luxury goods and the 7.35 rate for prepared foods. So it requires very precise categorization. And then service taxation. So certain services, including maintenance, repairs, and some digital services are taxable, which adds complexity for service-oriented businesses. And then lastly, as I mentioned, there's exemptions and exclusions. So
Mhm.
food items intended for home consumption are exempt, while prepared food for immediate consumption is not. So this distinction requires accurate classification.
Understood. And how frequently do Connecticut's sales tax rates or rule change? And how can businesses stay updated?
Yeah, so they've been relatively stable. Changes do occur, particularly as it relates to specific goods or services. So Connecticut recently expanded tax applicability to certain digital and remote services. Businesses often need to track updates in legislation that may impact specific categories. And the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services is the main source of the updates. Many businesses also use tax compliant tools that provide real time alerts to stay current on certain rule changes.
I see. What are some of the primary resources available to businesses to stay informed about sales and use tax changes in Connecticut?
So there's three main resources. There's the Connecticut Department of Revenue Services, also known as DRS. There's the DRS publications and alerts. And then lastly, there's the third-party compliance software. So softwares like Avalara and Hyperbots AI integrate with sales systems to ensure compliance and update rates automatically when changes occur.
Understood. And what are some specific challenges do companies face when managing compliance with Connecticut sales and use taxes? If you can share some examples, that would also be extremely helpful.
Yeah, so one would be just handling multiple tax rates. So as I mentioned, for luxury goods, like selling a car over $50,000 incurs a 7.75 tax rate, while other items are taxed at the base rate of 6.35. And then also there's applying tax to certain services. So trying to determine whether a service is taxable can be complex. So one example would be digital products. They fall under specific tax rules, and failing to categorize them can lead to noncompliance. And lastly is just managing exemptions. So as I mentioned previously, items like prescription drugs are exempt, but it's crucial to track exempt sales accurately to ensure proper reporting.
That's pretty interesting. Now, since AI is such a big buzzword today and there is so much evolving in the finance world and the tax world, in your experience, how can artificial intelligence help businesses manage sales and use tax compliance more efficiently, especially within Connecticut's unique tax categories and exemptions?
Absolutely. So one thing AI can do, it can have automated rate application. Secondly, it can determine taxability. And thirdly, it can exemption management. So AI can track exempt sales accurately and ensure proper documentation for audit purposes. So for example, Hyperbots AI offers a solution that automates the categorization and application of Connecticut's unique tax rates, and it allows for businesses to streamline their compliance efforts and minimize errors.
Makes sense. And how can AI support companies during audits for sales and use tax compliance in Connecticut?
So it helps with efficient document retrieval. It can categorize and retrieve sales records, exemption documentation by transaction type, and just make it easier to pull records during an audit. It also helps with error detection and correction. So AI can analyze past transactions to identify misclassified goods or services, which allows businesses to address issues before the audit.
That's really helpful. That brings me to the last question. What do you see as the future role of AI in handling Connecticut sales and use tax compliance?
Yeah, so AI will likely expand beyond its role of just compliance. It can provide deeper insights and help with planning. So, predictive analytics, AI can help forecast the impact of potential tax changes or new tax categories on revenue. Also, real time compliance dashboards. So, AI can provide live compliance monitoring, offering instant insights into tax liabilities across different transaction types. And then lastly, I would say proactive alerts as it relates to regulatory changes. So AI can notify companies of pending tax changes that may impact their businesses, such as new rules on digital products or luxury goods. So, in summary, Hyperbots is leading in this area. It's offering real time compliance and predictive analytics that help businesses navigate Connecticut's tax landscape. Additionally, their platform assists with compliance while providing proactive insights for better financial planning.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights over there, Sean. This was extremely helpful. And that brings us to the end of today's discussion. Also, big thanks to our viewers. I'll see you around and have a good one.